Our next speaker, I don't even know if you remember who's doing this, but the very first time I had a coaching conversation with him, he threatened to fire me. Which probably tells you as much about me as John, because he gave me an action item and I was like, no. And he goes, okay, well, have a good life. Fortunately, I came around, and so did he, and we've had a great relationship forever now, it seems. John is known as the business doctor. Once he gets finished making up, I'll have him come up here. Quick backstory on this guy. 17 years old. His story reads kind of like a doll story to me as I'm like looking through this because I didn't know all this apparently. Homeless at age 17, high school dropout, drug addict at age 17. And then on what page of the Sacramento Business Journal, John? What page of the Business Journal were you on? Center page of the Sacramento Business Journal as one of the fastest growing businesses in one of the greatest recessions since the Great Depression. Built a multi-million-dollar business in under 3 years in one of the quickest tanking economies we had. Has gone on to build multiple multi-million-dollar businesses and works with thousands of businesses across the globe. And I'm stalling until John can get up here and take over and teach us a little bit about going from great to greatest.
All right, so my area is this. And if you were here last year, you know I walk everywhere. So I got to stay right here. What's up in internet land? Okay, so how many of you are ready for happy hour? Okay. So this is like the third time I've given a speech where I'm like right before the alcohol. And so he thought he was. I got an even harder job. So how many of you would love to have the absolute greatest year you've ever had, not just in your business, but in every single area of your life? Okay. So over the last 28 years, I've worked with thousands of business owners. I built 7 different businesses myself, several million-dollar businesses, coached and trained thousands of salespeople. And one of the things that I've discovered in working with lots and lots of people is the number one thing that holds them back. What do you think that is? What do you think is the number one thing that holds an individual back from achieving greatness in their life? Themselves, right? What is it about themselves that holds them back?
Scared to fail.
Scared to fail. Mindset. Exactly. So one of the things I've discovered is, even in my own life, I grew up in a very poor home, found myself, like she said, homeless when I was 17 and a half, highly addicted to drugs, dropped out of high school, had 0 chance of succeeding at all. And it wasn't until I got my mindset right that every single thing changed for me. Not to mention, my very first mentor fired me, actually. I wasn't able to rescue myself. So he actually said to me one day, he goes, you know what, John, you argue for your limitations, and you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to let you keep them. Bye. I was pissed. I was like upset. I took it internally. I mean, it's all about mindset. And so to help us out with it is, let me tell you about a story. 1992, this country created one of the best basketball teams ever in the history of the world. It was called the Dream Team. Now, some of you were probably in elementary back at that time, and some of you are as old as I am, almost dirt-like old. But it was Scottie Pippen, Michael Jordan, Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, Charles Barkley, just to name a few. David Robinson, yeah. And so they were crushing people 20, 30, 40, 50 points a game with an average point spread of 43.8. Huge. It was so much fun to watch. Never in the world has that much talent been assembled in one spot. And the 2 co-captains, Larry Bird and Magic Johnson, used to like to hang out with the greatest basketball player of all time, the great Michael Jordan. And during the practice that day, before they were set to play Spain, I believe, the next day, they're having a conversation like, hey, we're crushing everybody. Why don't we go out on the town and get a chance to see the town? Yeah, I mean, we're we're going to practice all day, and that's what we're going to go do, and shouldn't be a problem. And so they all three agreed. They were literally considered the three musketeers at one point in time. And so here they are at the end of the day, and Larry Bird and Magic Johnson are in the waiting room of the hotel. Well, where's Mike? Couldn't find Mike. So they're asking around, and finally, after searching for Michael, they find Michael Jordan in the practice facility shooting hoops, doing layups, doing free throws. Now, keep in mind, they had worked out all day. And they're going, dude, we got to go out of town. What are you doing? He goes, I'm practicing. I'll be done in a minute. He goes, we're crushing these people. You're the greatest basketball player of all time, and you don't need to do this. And he goes, you know what? And here's the thing that really probably for some of you is going to be the biggest breakthrough that you have, not just in this weekend, but in your life. And that is this. He said to them, he says, you know what? I'm not competing against them. I'm not competing against you. I'm competing against me. And I know that if I don't practice today, I'm going to have an even easier excuse not to practice tomorrow. And then tomorrow turns into a week. And then a week turns into a month. No, in order to play at the level I need to play at, I need to practice every single day. There is no competition for me except me. Now, the one thing that every single one of us in this room have in common with the great Michael Jordan is the fact that we have no competition except for ourselves. And to prove it to you, I want you everybody to pick your, if you're right-handed, I want you to take your right hand. If you're left-handed, I want you to take your left hand. I want you to look at the end of your fingers there, and I want you to notice that you have some fingerprints, okay? Now, I did a Google search during lunch, and according to Google now, it's gone up since October, the last time I gave this talk, that we're at 7.53 billion people on this planet. 7.53 billion, probably an estimate. Now, to put that into perspective, if you take 1 million seconds of time, that's going to give you 12 days. Dial in. All right. If you take 1 billion seconds of time, that's 32 years. And we're talking 7.53 billion people on the planet, and not a single one of them have your fingerprint. Not a single one of them have your DNA. So if there's one thing that you got in common with the greatest basketball player of all time, and every single member on that team, is the fact that you are unique, and you need to stop competing with anybody else but yourself. One of the most enjoyable times in my life is obviously when I was born. At least I think I was happy. I was crying. You know, my mom said I was the ugliest looking young child. You know, but I turned out really look at me now. You know, and so, but the second day that was the most enjoyable day of my life is when I found out, and I internally, literally embraced me and became comfortable in my own skin. And it took a lot of work to get there. And I know some of you in here, okay, you're coming off of just a good year, and you think that maybe I might have a good year again. But I'm going to tell you right now, if you do what Michael Jordan did, you're not only going to have a great year, you're going to become the greatest at everything that you do. And so here's what he did. True story. After every single season, when they were done playing basketball, he would go and he would watch hours and hours of film. Now, it gives you an idea of how long ago this was, right? But he would watch hours and hours and hours of film. He had a little notepad, and he would jot down little things he wanted to see improved in his game. And he would just make a list. And then through a process of elimination, he would go through and whittle that down to one thing. Not 20 things, not 1,000 things, one thing. And then what he would do is he would go out and find the mentors, he would go out and find the trainers, the coaches, all the resources that he could find on that one thing, and he would focus his entire off season mastering that one thing. And so one season it was his left hand. And that's all he did the entire off season was his left hand. And then the next season it was his strength training. We found some trainers that were really good at training in that area, and that's all he focused on in his off season. And it was that discipline, that consistency that made Michael Jordan great. See, all the other basketball players in the NBA, they're all great. You have to be great to get to the NBA. Let's agree with that, right? But the exceptionally great understand one thing. Number one, there is no other competition besides yourself. Number two, they have a system in place to ensure that they consistently improve. For me, it was Clark Broom in 1991 when he told me, he says, you know what? If you only just sit down every single month and just take an inventory of the different, your faith, finances, family, friends, fitness, and business, if you just take an inventory of how you did that month, and then ask yourself, what is one or two things that I can add going into the next month to make an even better result? If you just do that one thing every month, John, I promise you, every single month in your life will be better than the one before. And he was right. And so, what's your one thing? Maybe you should go back the last 3 months, the last year. Really look at it. Hey, how did I do in the area of faith, family, finance, fitness, friends, fun, business? How did you do? And then ask yourself this. What are some things that you would like to improve on? And I want you to make that list. And then through a process of elimination, ask yourself, what is the one thing that I can do? Maybe it's for 3 months, maybe it's for the entire year. What is one thing that I can do that will give me the best return and impact all these other things? Recently, I celebrate my new year based on my birthday. My birthday is in December, and I'm going into my 49th year of life. I know I don't look it, but next year I'm going to be fit. This year I'm going to be 50. And I made a decision, 49 is going to be the absolute best year I've ever had in life, in every single area of my life. And as I did this exercise, I'm going, man, what is one thing that I can do that will have the biggest impact? And then what it came down to for me is committing to a morning routine. Getting up in the morning and going through a complete morning routine, which I'm going to get into tomorrow. Okay? And if you can't make it, it's going to be recorded, and you want to grab that. And so let's kind of take a little checkup from the neck up before I close, and let's see kind of where you're at right now. Because here we are, we're 9 days into the year? Yeah? Okay? And so let's just check to see if this year is going to be better than it was last year. And so I want you to play an exercise. It's afternoon, right before the booze. Okay, because I don't know if I want to ask you this question after you get a cup of coffee. Who knows what the answer is going to be? Okay? So I'm going to play an exercise called the what level exercise. And so I'm going to say good afternoon, and I want you to respond with good afternoon, and we're going to call that a level 6 in terms of energy and enthusiasm. Does everybody understand the instructions? Okay, you ready? Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Fantastic. Awesome. You guys literally were the best group I've had all day. Kind of corny, but anyways. All right, so let's step this up. Level 8. A little bit more energy, a little bit more enthusiasm. If you want to smile this time, you actually have my permission to do so. Okay? Ready? Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Fantastic. Now, last level. Let's play at a level 10. Now, when I think of a level 10, and with this amount of people in the room, What I perceive with level 10 is you're going to get out of your seat. We're going to raise the energy as highest as we possibly can. That way the energy is extremely high, so when the great Stephanie Scheller comes up here in a minute, we're at that energy level. That, if you need some additional motivation, just look to the person to your left and look to the person to your right, and their entire future depends on how you act right now. So no pressure. No pressure. Okay? Are you ready? I want you to give each other high fives, celebrate, treat it like it was like, leave it all on the field. Okay? Are you ready? Are you ready? Good afternoon. Fantastic. Give yourselves a round of applause. You will have a seat. All right. First we played at a 6. And then we played at a 10. First a 6 and then a 10. Here's a question I have for you. Over the last 9 days, because we're 9 days into a brand new year, right? As you've been showing up in your business, what level have you been playing at? Okay? Now, one of the things that I've learned is there's a lot of people that play at a high level in their business. I do, Stephanie does, a lot of you do, right? And that's great. But let me ask it a different way. Because recently, my dad ended up passing. And 85 years old, I went to him. 85 is a long time. I went to him and I said, hey, what regrets do you have? And he said, you know what? I got one. And that is, I would have spent more time with you guys. I mean, here he could have said a car, house, mansion, all this stuff that we go out and we try to go after, but it really came down to time. And so let me ask you a question. Over the last 9 days, as you've been showing up in the relationships that are the most important to you, your husband, spouse, wife, significant other, children, what level have you been playing at? What about your health? What about your fitness? Finances? What level have you been playing at? You see, my good friend Roy Vaden says this: success is never owned. It's only rented. And the rent is due every day. And if you take what I talked about today, and you just do those 2 simple things, compete against yourself, and by doing that, you're going to decide what your season is. Maybe it's a calendar quarter, maybe it's every month, maybe it's once a year. And you go back and look at your performance in every area of your life, and you come up with one thing that you can implement and do that for this next season. That's going to make a difference. And then every single month, do a little baseline on yourself and ask yourself, what can you do to add to that baseline? And then more importantly, find your butt somebody that can hold you accountable. And by doing that, you will have the greatest year that you've ever had. Did you guys have fun? Yeah.